This video is mostly for my congresswoman, Maxine Dexter, but it's also for anybody in her district here in Oregon who heard her say at her last town hall that the reason that she is not calling what is happening in Gaza a genocide is because it has not been officially declared that, and she wanted to be really careful to use language that is not going beyond what experts are describing the situation as. And I like Maxine. Again, transparency, I did not vote for her in the primary, but I voted for her in the general election. And I feel like she's, overwhelmingly doing a good job. And I think she really does care what her constituents say. And she does try and listen and represent the folks in her district. Do not envy any freshman Democrat in Congress at all. I could not imagine doing that job. It's got to be terrible. But in this town hall, I was frustrated because folks stood up and asked her, why won't you call it a genocide? And I'm going to paraphrase here a bunch, but her perspective, as I understood it, was if she used the term genocide, that would shut down conversation with people she was trying to convince. So she felt it was an inflammatory term. And until some expert body like the UN declared that it was a genocide, she was going to continue to use phrases like humanitarian crisis. And Maxine has been criticized so far pretty heavily by her constituents for what they perceive as her hesitancy around Gaza, even though she's clearly said from the get-go that we should not be sending arms to Israel. They are violating the Leahy law. That as a physician and a mother, she felt that what was happening is continuing to happen is unconscionable. But still, a lot of her constituents feel that she's not going far enough. Multiple town halls I've been to of Maxine's have been interrupted pretty heavily by pro-Palestinian activists. So the reason that I'm making this video now, and I will be calling Maxine's office as well, is because in that town hall, she's like, I'm not going to call it a genocide until an authoritative body declares it a genocide, and that hasn't happened yet, and that I don't think that it's helpful for having conversations, persuasive conversations with other people to use terms that are not official or whatever. It actually, in the moment, reminded me of how people said we shouldn't call Trump a fascist, that was hyperbolic. Yeah. That didn't age too well, did it? Because look what he's doing, literal fascism. But the reason that I'm making this video now is that Maxine said when the UN declares it a genocide, she will start using that term. And this week, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry says that Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. So Maxine, are you going to start using that term? The new report out says there are reasonable grounds to conclude that 4 of the 5 genocidal acts defined under international law have been carried out since the start of the war with Hamas in 2023. Those include killing members of a group, causing them serious bodily and mental harm, deliberately inflicting conditions calculated to destroy the group, and preventing births. The report cites statements made by Israeli leaders and a pattern of conduct by Israeli forces as evidence of genocidal intent. Of course, Israel denies the claims in this report, but according to the BBC, at least 64,964 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks since October 7th, 2023. According to the BBC, most of the population has been repeatedly displaced since October 7th, 2023. More than 90% of homes are damaged or destroyed. The healthcare, water, sanitation, and hygiene systems have completely collapsed. UN-backed food security experts have declared a famine in Gaza City. Now, I've explained in a series of videos why a famine is a man-made construct. It is a tool of genocide. It is an intentional choice to deprive a population of access to food. It is not a natural disaster. It is a weapon of war. It is a war crime. Please understand, if you're worried about bias here, this commission previously concluded that Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups had committed war crimes and other grave violations of international law on October 7th itself. They also previously concluded that Israeli security forces have committed crimes against humanity and war crimes in Gaza. Their job is to investigate and accurately describe and report the conditions that are happening in the region. And so it's not strictly them reporting just on Israel. They have on the actions of Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups as well. I guess I have a couple of questions here. And then I also want to correct something I said a while ago in a video about Gaza, or maybe not correct, but an evolution of my thinking on the issue that I want to make really clear here. I guess my questions for Maxine are you going to call it a genocide now? And how are you going to continue to have those conversations with your colleagues, I guess, in Congress who don't have the same perspective that you or I may have on what is happening? How are you going to continue to persuade people without minimizing what's actually occurring? I guess my question for my fellow constituents in Maxine's district is, if she does start calling it a genocide, is that going to be satisfactory? What else do you want to see from her on this issue? And more than that, what do you think would be the most effective tactic for her to take to change hearts and minds, to reach people in DC, to reach her colleagues, to reach constituents in her district that probably wouldn't listen to you or I at all? What do you think is the most effective means for getting people to understand accurately what is happening and then to care about it enough to do something or to push their legislators to do something? This is where I kind of want to correct something that I said a while back. So, I don't know, maybe it's just my own bias, my own perception, because I'm in a little bubble in Portland, Oregon. But even here, I have a chunk of friends who agree with my perspective on what is happening in Gaza. And then I have a chunk of friends who are like a little bit checked out. And you can tell that the tremendous amount of like AIPAC rhetoric has kind of worked on them. If you try to bring up what's happening in Gaza, they'll be like, oh yeah, but what about Hamas? And it's a kind of a non-starter from the get-go. It's difficult to have that conversation with folks where they can understand the severity of what's happening, the like tremendous amount of human suffering. I said in a video a while back, I think it was when people threw red paint on AOC's office after she didn't vote along with Marjorie Taylor Greene, that our job is to change hearts and minds, right? To change public opinion. Because if we want to help the people of Palestine, then we need to have popular support to push legislators. Our popular support has to be strong enough to override all of the money that they get from AIPAC. And I get frustrated when I see people taking actions that I think are going to negatively impact public opinion. And at the time, I was operating out of this poll that came out after what happened on October 7th. And that poll said that 40% of Americans thought Israel was going too far. And I was like, well, a majority of Americans are not in opposition to what Israel is doing. I was operating out of my own limited perspective of interacting with my friends and also outdated polling information. Even back in 2023, 58% of Democrats felt that Israel had gone too far. And I remember being like kind of horrified that that number was that low. But there is a new poll out today. When asked whether folks think Israel has gone too far in Palestine, more than 7 out of 10 Democrats say yes. Public opinion has shifted significantly. This is really the kicker for me. Independents, previously 39%, thought that Israel had gone too far in Gaza. And now 53%, a majority of independent voters think that Israel has gone too far. If you look at even Republicans, it went from 18% to 24%. Overall, the percentage of Americans who think that Israel has gone too far in Gaza has increased from 40 to 49%. I think we're really reaching a tipping point where public opinion is shifting pretty dramatically. And I think that's a good thing because we have to build public pressure. I don't personally see a way that we can actually stop what's happening, that we can actually stop our government from supporting the genocide of Palestinians as long as Donald Trump and Bibi are like best buds and Trump will support what Bibi wants. And as long as Republicans are in Donald Trump's pocket, right? Under his thumb, in his pocket, however you want to frame it. But I hope that Democrats, like my Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, will look at this new polling and say, okay, we need to accurately describe what's happening here. This is a winning position it's a moral position for us to take up, and it's also a strategic position. 71% of Democrats don't like what Israel is doing in Gaza and think they've gone too far. And nearly half of Americans, right? Democrats have got to see this as something that is politically expedient for them, as well as moral and just, to take up this issue, to accurately describe what's happening, and to work to stop it. So Maxine, I would love to hear what your response is to the polling that is out today, and also to this new UN report declaring that Israel has committed 4 out of the 5 genocidal acts against the people of Gaza.